at this point, and if you say something new to me, I just make the exception for that. Like, I guess I haven't heard it all.
So back to your childhood for a moment. I want you to just tell me more about that. Like, what was like growing up in general? Like, you said that wasn't your only thing that happened.
My childhood was, I grew up in the inner city of St. Louis. I was born in Kansas City, but I grew up in the inner city of St. Louis. I grew up with a colorful family, right? Grandmother, grandfather, uncles, and all of that, cousins. It was a free for all, for real, like, and we was bad. Everybody, a family full of, mischievous children, right? So it was crazy. I was shot a few times, all that. Like, it was a whole different experience for me growing up. And then on the back end, my mother was somebody, which changed the whole trajectory of my life. My mama was a somebody, which made it where I was a somebody just by being her child, which changed my whole upbringing. I was Etta Jean's son, and I didn't really have like problems like that. The majority of my problems, I created them because I got a rush out of it.
Do you feel that you had extra pressure on you because
of
that?
No, it gave me, in all actuality, it gave me leeway to act out because nobody gonna play with my mom. And my mother wasn't going to play with anybody about me, which kind of changed later on in my life. It makes sense on how I deal with women with children, right? The way she raised me is one of the reasons why I deal the way I deal with women when I deal with women that have children. Because my mother always took my side, whether I was right or wrong. And when I deal with somebody, if I deal with their kids, they wrong me, I can't get mad. I can't never be upset with the mama because you gotta take your kid's side. Because my mama took mine, and I was way worse than your child.
I understand. Yeah, as far as putting your child first. Yeah. Yes. Now, when you were young, it sounds like your mom was there for you. Definitely.
Spoiled, but love. Yes and no. I wanted to play in the streets. My mama let me play in the streets. She was still my mama, but she let me play in the streets. I wanted to be a part of the street culture and all of that, but my mother didn't tolerate that type of behavior in her residence. So if I wanted to play in the streets, I couldn't stay there. I had to go find me somewhere else to stay. So I did, and she wasn't upset about it or none of that. Like, she let me leave and go play in the streets. And then when I wanted to be a kid, she let me, right? If I didn't want to be a child, then I couldn't be under her roof. Because that was her rule.
So what did you do?
I left.
Where did you go?
I went to live with my aunt and wherever else I could stay. I didn't sleep in vacant buildings and all of that as a kid because I wanted to be on my own.
How did you support yourself financially?
Playing in the streets, everything. As a child, my grandfather gave me the greatest hustle ever. So when I was a little kid, my grandfather took me with him. He used to take me with him on weekends as a kid. And he knew all of the best places to hit for aluminum cans and Coca-Cola bottles. Keep in mind, I'm a 70s baby. When I was growing up, the Coke bottles they still made Coke and Pepsi in glass bottles.
Yes.
So the glass bottles used to be exchangeable for a nickel or a dime or something. If you brought the bottle back, they gave you a nickel or a dime for it. So my grandfather knew all the places to go get bottles and aluminum cans. So as a little kid, he would take me with him to go get the cans and glass. Nice. And then he would give me my half. So as a little kid growing up, 7, 8, 9, 10, I knew what getting some money was. That was never really a problem. And then 11, 10, 11, 12, when I was on my own. That's when the crack epidemic hit. So I started off running from car to car until I got my own, and then it moved on from there. And then I tried to sell. I probably sold every drug known to man at that time until that's what I meant by I was doing rocks at the penitentiary until I struck pay dirt. I did that all the way up until it took me to jail. I probably had, in my childhood, in my young adult years, from 0 to 21, I may have worked at 2 jobs, and it wasn't long.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, but most of your young adult life, even as an adolescent, was spent selling drugs.
And
Is that correct?
selling drugs and doing street, I wouldn't say just selling drugs, because you don't sell drugs. Drugs sell themselves. Nobody in the world sells drugs. Drugs sell themselves. But anything that came with robbing, shooting, anything that came with getting some money, I was with it all the way up until it took me to prison. The consequences came. Yeah.
How long were you there?
First time, 14 years. I got sentenced to 20. My first stay was 14 flat.
And when you came home, and during that time, did you have support?
I had my mother, my grandmother, my grandfather. But my grandfather died while I was in prison. My mother caught MS. My mother's MS showed up. So she had started to deal with, that's when I found out my mother had multiple sclerosis. I was in prison, and I got to see that side of it. I got to see the outside side of it. I got to watch her deteriorate through pictures and phone calls. And she used to come visit me all the time, but then the visits slowed down, and then they stopped because she couldn't move.
That's a disease.
Yeah, that's the disease. I deal with it all the way up until the last breath. I know.
I've family members with it, so. Another thing too, so when you came home, you're coming home now, your mom is ill, and I can imagine that. To say stress, I think, is an understatement, even, because you're coming home now. You're in a whole different period of development, right? So, what did you do when you came home?
When I came home, I got married. When I came home the first time, when I got out of prison the first time, I was engaged to my childhood sweetheart.
Okay.
Right. When I got out of prison, I put my mother in a nursing home because she needed 24-hour care, and the people that were around her weren't giving her the care that she needed. So I went and found a nursing home to put her in, which is a completely different story. I almost went to jail. But I found a nursing home to put her in, and I put her in a nursing home where she could get 24-hour care. I got married, divorced, and got right back into street life in a matter of a year. I was on the run. I was on the run from the state and the feds in a matter of no more than 16, 18 months from the time I got released. I went through every stage of stupid, all the way back to them people looking for me.
This was the second time you went back. Go back. Who are your friends? Do you have any friends? Or
Yeah, I got friends. They in the book. That's the second time I went to prison. I wrote my first book. Well, not the first book I ever wrote, because I wrote a bunch of books when I was in prison, but I lost them. They got lost in transit and this, that, and the third. So that was the first book I actually published. And the only reason I even wrote the book is because there were so many people in my life that I ran into on a regular, everyday basis while I was in the streets being super stupid. Right back to my normal chase down a dollar by any means type of lifestyle. I'm running from the police, and wherever come with it, I'm with it.
Right.
So I ended up going back to jail, and hundreds of customers and people that jammed with me wanted to know what happened, because they seen me all the time and never knew that I was on the run. But I just didn't care, because it come with the lifestyle. So I went back to prison, and when I came home, while I was in prison, my mother instructed me to write loud. That's when the light clicked on to tell stories about my life. My mother put me on that. It's always a woman that give me great life advice. She told me, as much trouble as you get in and whatnot, you should start writing books, because you can tell a story and they be your stories. So I put out my second book about my friends and family and all of that, and how life went downhill from there. Right? Then I went back to prison, 17 cars, 2 helicopters. It was a chase. It was a chase. That's what the Lord is a chase.
Now, that right there sounds, in and of itself, to be a pretty dramatic experience, to say the least.
It's in the book, but they called me in the woods and mistreated me. It came with it. It comes with it.
So you seem to be very accepting of the consequences of your behavior.
You got to be, right? If you once you make the life decision that whatever it is that you're gonna do. Whatever comes with it, you gotta be ready for it. Like, you gotta be accepting of it, whatever it is. However it's gonna play itself out, no matter what the situation is. That's why I am like I am. That's why I need to get this off my chest and get it all out of my system, because I just accept it for what it is and keep moving forward. And when I start to think about it, it started bringing me down and down and down and down to the point where I could do something I ain't got no business doing, because I know me. I'm stupid.
I don't care for that language.
Forgive me. That's just how I live it.
So if we could just establish some rules real quick, because I know this is our first time meeting, right? So we're going to work on different ways to express maybe your thoughts, starting with like negative self-talk, right? Because you know you're not stupid. I know you're not stupid. I've seen your file. So with that being said, I would like to challenge you to speak about that in different words when you say being stupid.
Okay.
That's just a little challenge.
I'll change.
Okay.
I make poor decisions that I stand on.